Major League Journeymen back in the house with a proper intro. Daniel Charles Gargan in the seat, the host seat. Thank you for keeping it mildly warm, Dax. You obviously did a subpar job, which is why I'm back. I've been recalled from AAA.
You're way too comfortable because I know you're too comfortable and you don't respect me because no respectable host would wear that atrocious outfit.
Oh, dude.
Cut off what you're wearing right now.
Right here. Hot boy summer, fellas. Get your guns out, all right? It's way too... Listen, there's a heat dome right above me right now. It's swirling through the Midwest. And you know what? We got some fire topics. How about that segue? We're here to talk about Copa America with none other than U.S. former internationals. Dax at this point, maybe you'll get another call up here. Gordo, we know Gordo is not getting called up, but former U.S. international Alan Gordon and Dax McCarty. Man, I just want to start with full transparency. I was in Kansas City at the game and witnessed that performance live last night. And I walked away with a really uneasy, uncomfortable feeling. I didn't feel great. I didn't feel terrible. I just felt uncomfortable. And it was hard to put into words where I was at. It was also hard to just kind of comprehend the crash face first that we had just experienced, that I just witnessed. And in the same breath, probably felt for large stretches of that game, overwhelmingly encouraged that I was actually seeing a group and a team that was playing for each other and maybe was going to pull out the result that they needed. So I was excited to get you guys on the horn and chop this up and see how you took it in, because also, as we were texting through the game, one thing that I thought was kind of odd, no replays in the stadium whatsoever. Not one replay of anything. So nobody in the stadium outside the people that were looking at their phones knew what was going on with the goal call and knew why it was offside or whether it was offside or onside or whatever. You just kind of sat there and waited, and then, murmurs go through the crowd that he was offside. But it was, man, the vibes were really high to start and throughout the first half. And the second half took a little bit of a turn just in terms of what are we going to do without Balogun. That clearly changed the game. And there was, I think, a little sense of hesitation at the start of the second half. And then, the wheels come off and all of a sudden you're making changes and throwing caution to the wind. And that was that. But when you guys think back now, having almost 24 hours, right, to digest this, sleep on it, get past your emotional reactionary response. Gordo, where are we at? Where are you at? What's the next step in your mind?
I don't know the answer to that, Gargs, to be completely honest. And I'm glad that I don't have I don't have to make that decision, because I think it's a really, really tough one, whether to stick with Greg or not with 2 years left. What I do know from my perspective is I felt the same as you in a lot of ways. I'm super conflicted in my heart as to, number one, who this team really is, how good can we really be, and what's the reality of where we're at? They're all very different answers. It's like last night, we start, we're flying and we're competing with one of the better teams in the tournament. It looks like we can get the result. Ultimately, the game is what the game is. I'm not a player, so I can make a few excuses for him. I think the referee was awful. I think he did us no favors. But I was like you, I saw a team that was united and was fighting for each other. However, I think it's just been a little bit too inconsistent. It's just been a little bit too inconsistent. If they played every game like that, they would win more games and they would win more high-level games. But the fact of the matter is they are very much a Greg Berhalter team. And you would see those teams in Columbus where sometimes when it's all clicking and every piece is moving and whatever, it looks great. But sometimes they're making mistakes and they're drawing in pressure that they shouldn't have, and they're not not fully engaged and as direct as they need to be dangerous enough to win games. Anyway, I'm conflicted, man. And so my last feeling is this. I just don't want to be, I just know where everybody feels after losing this. There was some unfortunate things that happened in this Copa America, but now I feel like the feeling and the faith in this team and this coach managing these players who have not lived up to the golden era of soccer, who they are better than any one of us was ever, right? But they're not getting the results of previous teams that had played or worn the jersey. So I don't want to take this feeling of uncertainty into, I guess it's inevitable, but we're going to be uncertain going into the World Cup. But I think you're almost more uncertain with Greg Berhalter because you don't know who we're going to be time in and time again. I don't know who the right person is. I mean, I heard like Rob Stone calling for guys that we were, the two names, Klopp and Pep. Yep. And that would be awesome. But who else would come and have the time to take over? I don't know. So I didn't really give you an answer there. I just gave you a lot of feelings that I'm feeling.
This is an emotional podcast. It's okay. We're here. We're here to share. And
just a lot of feelings.
I appreciate being vulnerable.
Nope, not good enough.
Dax.
No, not good enough.
Hold on.
No, Gordo, you're Matt Crocker. Is Greg your guy? Are you sticking with him?
No, hold on. We're not.
No, I like that from Dax. I like that.
We got more to unpack first before we get to that decision because Gordo is not Matt Crocker yet. Dax, I want to ask you. Here's your question. Everybody heading into this, U.S. Soccer included, all the media, everybody that talked about it, set this bar out of Copa America as we have to get through the group stage and then have to get through a knockout game in order for this to be successful. Now that we're out of it, looking back on that, is that an acceptable bar to set for this team?
No.
Was that an acceptable bar?
No, it's not. It's not acceptable for the way that this team is talked about and for the way that these players talk about themselves. That's not an acceptable bar. Do you guys remember when Greg first got hired? It might have been when he first got hired. It might have been when he came back. He said he wanted to change, and this whole group wanted to change the way that the world views American soccer. We don't want to be the plucky underdogs anymore. We don't want to be the team that is content to sit behind the ball and be gritty and counterattack. We want to be progressive. We want to play on the front foot. We want to bring the game to the opponent, and we want to beat the best teams in the world. That is your stated goal. That's what you said. And you know what? I loved it. I loved that cockiness. I loved drawing a line in the sand and saying we can be better than what we have been in the past. And up until this point, through the World Cup, we said on this podcast, in 2022, when they got out of the group and when they impressed a bunch of people and when they impressed other national team managers and when, they lost to a better team in the Netherlands, we all came out of that saying pretty much the same thing. Like, you know what? They lost to the better team, but they did us proud. They were the better team against England, who, by the way, absolutely stinks right now as well. But guess what the difference between the US and England is that England stinks and they're still getting results and they're still, trucking on through their continental competition. So not to compare, but my point is this: these players, every single one of them, and this team, this coaching staff, this federation has stagnated since 2022. I haven't seen one player other than Christian Pulisic and Anthony Robinson who have taken their game to the next level, who have established themselves at their club as a must-start every week player who is going to contribute at a high level and be counted on. Every single one of our players that was in that lineup last night, other than those two, are bit part players. Yes, Weston McKennie's playing at Juventus, but he's not. He started a bunch of games, but they're not relying on him. They don't want to rely on him. They don't want to give him a new contract. We're talking about Weston McKennie potentially coming back to MLS. We're talking 3 journeymen here, guys who spent their whole careers in MLS. We love MLS. If you're Weston McKennie and you're going from Juventus to MLS, there's something wrong. And you're 25 years old. There's a disconnect there between where you see yourself and where your talent level says you are, and then where apparently other people rate you. right? Because you haven't improved. You look a little bit unfit, in my opinion, and you're supposed to be one of the leaders of this team. Like, I just don't get it. Gio Reyna, supremely talented guy. We all agree on that. He doesn't play soccer. He does not play. Where does he play? Like, he does not play.
You're talking about which team?
I remember
what position?
I know which teams he plays for. I know which teams he plays for. He does not see the field. So when he comes to the national team, he's not sharp. Tyler Adams, he's been injured for 2 straight years, right? Like, these guys, Tim Ream, one of our 36, 37-year-old is our best, most consistent defender other than Anthony Robinson. There's something wrong with that. He does not play regularly in the Premier League, right? And I thought Tim was fine, right? But again, you go down the line, Matt Turner, you don't play regularly. And you just have to ask yourself, what is the breaking point between going over to Europe and testing yourself at the highest level and trying to prove yourself and fight for your spot, but not necessarily, but maybe it's a little bit too much for you. Like, a bunch of these guys are at places in Europe and at teams where I think that it's a little bit too high of a level for them, and they should drop down a team, a spot in the league, maybe a league, and get regular minutes. Like, this is where the issue is, I think. And forget about the coaching for a second, because I just want to hit on the players. Because for me, I don't see any guy who has progressed enough to take us to the next level. And the next level for this team should not be getting out of a group with Bolivia, Panama, and Uruguay. It should be making a semifinal on home soil, which is what we have in 2 years.
Home soil.
For me, that's the issue right now with where we are at in our player pool. So we have a lot of guys who we had a lot of potential when they were 18, 19, 20 years old. These are full-fledged professionals now in their mid-20s. They are not young anymore. They need to be showing and playing better. Okay.
I remember
that's without the coaching stuff.
I remember arguing with you and Gargs about Gio Reyna and saying, is he a must be on the team? I said he wasn't playing, and you both said, I don't care. You both said, I don't care. But now it's a huge issue, because it is a huge issue.
Not a huge issue if he's the only one, but there's a bunch of guys.
Here's the thing. Let's go. Let's stick with the players, because one, I want you guys to answer this question. Are they as good as everyone says they are? Which Dax, you've kind of alluded to, maybe not. Which I would probably echo that sentiment. I saw the exact same thing that you did, which was probably what the most damning piece of observation was for me. Was the only thing that I saw on that field last night that has progressed is Anthony Robinson's defensive ability and Christian Pulisic from an individual attacking ability.
Those are the only guys who you write in pen. And
those are the only two things that I feel like from Cutter to now have significantly progressed. Significantly.
I think that the players in total, especially the midfielders that we have across the board, are more talented individually. Okay, they look better to the eye. Point, or they look better. They can turn. They're faster. They're quick. Like Musa and Way and Pulisic and all these guys. They are. I would say, no disrespect to anybody else that's played those. We've had great guys, but they have a little bit different flair to them. But I don't think they're more effective players. And
so you're talking about, you think this class of midfielders is
they're technically better.
Previous, yeah, I agree with you.
They're technically better, but I don't think they're more effective in games. I think that guys in the past were better competitors, knew the position well. Like, think about even like Kyle Beckerman or Pablo, guys, friends of the pod, who would play the 6 role to a freaking T.
I also think I will say that Tyler Adams is fantastic. And
he is fantastic.
I think he has been a massive missing piece, and I think that that has to be considered. I thought he's more of an old school.
He's more of an old school Beckerman, Pablo type of guy. He gets in, he's physical, stuff like that. The guys that are around him, Gio included, are a little bit better technically to the eye, but I don't think they're definitely not better together than teams.
Here's the thing that I saw let's talk about Gio. Gio did things last night that no one else on the field can do or was trying. And
no one else on the field for the US.
No one on the field for the US, right. And I also thought that we clearly do not have a game plan to find him the ball. which is then now it goes back to, okay, are we utilizing our best assets in the right way? And for me, it was clear and obvious that we were not, and we did not, and we have not. And that's why, Gordo, to defend my position on Gio, I think that he has to be on the field, and we have to figure out a way, a style, a plan to get him on the ball and create. Because we didn't have that, man. It was blatantly obvious.
I will say this to Dan's point. Essentially a must-win game, and I want to get to the other stuff later about the other results from the other games and whatever. But in my opinion, I saw this Uruguay game as a must-win game, and that's how they talked about it going into it. We have to play the games of our lives.
It was a knockout round game in the group stage.
And so in a must-win game, we have, and you guys, I know you guys hate expected goals, but I do think it tells a story of like high volume chance creation and all that stuff.
We had no high volume chance creation.
We had no high volume chance creation, to your point about Gio. We had less than a half point. We had less than 0.5 expected goals on 8 shots and 3 shots on target in a game where you pretty much have to win, right? So that tells me we are not putting our attacking players in positions to succeed. And other than Christian Pulisic dribbling 2 or 3 guys, or us putting in a hopeless cross here and there, or Balogun scoring an absolute worldie against Panama before we go down a man, or actually that was when we were down a man. But even then, we're not creating high value chances.
We're not creating chances.
Pepe had a couple against Bolivia. It's the worst team in the competition, and he didn't score.
This is the worst team in the hemisphere. They're awful.
Pepe didn't score because he doesn't have a ton of rhythm. He's not a full-time important player in his domestic league. So again, this can happen. You're a striker, you can miss chances. My bigger problem is kind of to your point, Dan, and Gordo saying, okay, Gio's not playing. Why is he getting called up? He is our best chance creator by far. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, other than Pulisic, he is your most cerebral midfielder, your most talented midfielder. Yunus Musa can provide you something a little bit different. He carries the ball. He's really good on the dribble, but he doesn't create, right? Like that's my complaint about Yunus Musa is I love this guy. I want him on the field, but he doesn't create. He doesn't score goals. He doesn't get assists, right? Tyler provides you with that defensive solidity that you need, and he looked great last night. I agree. He hasn't been on the field for a year and a half, right? Weston, in my opinion, he's a guy who I like him. He's had amazing performances for the national team in the past. I don't know, but I don't know why he is a written-in pen starter for this team. I don't understand it. I texted you guys that after a couple games where we watch, and I'm just, look, he goes through these waves where sometimes he looks amazing, other times he's anonymous. So I just don't understand why he's a guy who Greg says he has to be on the field for us all the time. But anyways, my point about Gio is this. How stubborn can you be? And this is to a coaching point. Greg, you want to play a 4-3-3. That's fine. Are you getting the best out of Gio Reyna in that formation? The answer is no. The answer is no, because in my opinion, his best position is not as a deep lying playmaker, which is where he was playing in the first 2 games, dropping deep, getting the balls off center backs. And he's not a winger, which is kind of where he's played in his career, which young attacking players tend to be put out there. He's not. He's a number 10. He's an old school number 10 who can unlock a defense. He's talented enough. He has vision. He's technical enough to break lines and to beat guys off the dribble and see the final pass. He can score goals. We've seen that. But you don't ever put him in a position to be able to do that for your strikers. So that to me is the biggest issue.
So for those reasons, because I have basically, my point, to everything you just said, our players have proven to us, and our biggest failure is that we cannot score goals in the current formation that Greg Berhalter is putting us in. And for those reasons, you'd have to think that a change is necessary, because either he's not putting him in the right positions, or the style of football or soccer that he wants to play, we can't score. So what I have written down is we would be literally foolish if we go 2 years from now, from today. We would be stupid if we went all the way that way and kicked this, swept it all under the rug and said, you know what, we still have faith in Greg, even though he's shown us what he's doing with the squad that he has, and we get knocked out of the group stage, we waste we waste that one opportunity maybe left in our lifetimes to have the World Cup on home soil. Wouldn't we feel like fools?
Yep.
Wouldn't we feel like absolute fools if we didn't think that a change was needed to be made? And you know how much I love Greg personally, but this is not personal. It's business, and it's what the product is, and he's obviously the manager. I just don't want to be sitting here. I just don't want to be sitting here in 2 years being like, why did we not make a change when we could have after Copa? I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to go through another tournament with these performances and not being able to score goals. It's not fun to watch. It's a complete waste.
No, it's not. I think that there are a couple other things that came out of last night that I sat and thought about. And one of the big ones was I thought we set ourselves up for failure and put ourselves in this position, Greg included, US Soccer included, in saying, hey, we need to get out of the group stage, get to a knockout round game, and win the knockout round game for this to be successful. You're setting essentially a drop dead line for you to now, US Soccer, be in a position where they're forced to make a decision. They're forced, and they are going to look one way or the other with whatever the result of this comprehensive review is, right? And what that actually means, who knows? But them going through a comprehensive review to get to a resolution here, man, this comprehensive review should have taken place 2 years ago, right? We're now down a road where it's sitting in a place where you're spot on, Gordo. I texted you guys this. The anxiety around US Soccer is through the roof, which is also pretty wild considering we are heading into the most monumental moment in the sports history in this country. And it is nowhere near euphoric. And all the things that we talk about are how transformative this is going to be because we have the golden age of talent that is on the field.
Why are we talking about them like there's some golden age of talent? We said this 4 years ago. Like, you know what I mean? And like, I kind of bought into it too. I kind of bought into the hype of like guys playing at Chelsea.
We bought into it because the potential was higher than it had ever.
And it was. And
you buy on potential, right? That's what happens with talent. That's what happens with players. You buy on potential, and then they still need to deliver.
It is. And that's the problem. They haven't delivered. Other than beating Mexico, who stinks, the worst Mexico.
They got grouped.
They have not. By the way, I hate this term grouped. Is this a thing that's always been an expression, Gargs? Grouped?
No, I've never heard it before, but I actually love it.
I like it, but I've never said it before or never heard it.
Well, I've never said it, but I'm going to say it now.
Okay. You're going to say it. You like it? Okay, cool.
I usually, I don't know.
Other than Mexico, these guys haven't done anything. They haven't won anything. You know what I mean? Like,
no, they haven't.
It's great to play in big clubs and to win. Like, you can only win the games in front of you, right? Like, and to a certain extent, it's not necessarily all US Soccer's fault because Nations League has completely ruined any chance. Nations League here on this side, on our confederation and in Europe as well, has ruined any chance of the U.S. team being able to get consistently good friendlies and consistently good games because all the teams in Europe are playing, right? Mm-hmm. So there's not. It's difficult to assess U.S. Soccer scheduling more important games because they can't do it. So you can only really beat the teams in front of you. But we've put so much value in our guys beating a crap Mexico team and winning the Nations League trophy, which, yeah, that's great. But it's almost like we overinflate that and we don't actually see it when it matters, right? Like in the World Cup.
I think we've had differing opinions on that, right? Because I think I've been on the other side of the fence here where I don't think that these fabricated, made-up trophies are valuable. And I think that you guys have always said, like, hey, no, beating Mexico anytime you beat them is valuable.
It is.
Which I can see the logic in that. But at the same point in time, is it really
hope? It provides you false hope because this team, you see them lifting the trophy, you're like, dang, that's great. That's amazing. But they're not getting any better. They're not really getting anything out of it because we're just beating Mexico like a redheaded stepchild these days. Like we're not getting better. What it is. We're not getting anything out of it. Right. And so we're not getting better. That's where my biggest issue is with these players is we've called them a golden generation. And to be completely honest, other than Christian Pulisic, not one of these guys can sit there and say, yes, I have accomplished so much at the club level and with the national team level that it deserves to be called that. Do you remember Chile when they had Alexis Sanchez and that actual real golden generation? They had guys that had been playing together just like our team for years, under 17s, under 20s, Olympic team, World Cups and Copas. They won 2 Copa Americas in arguably the hardest confederation to win it, right? When you have the Brazils and the Argentinas and these teams that are traditional powerhouses, and little Chile winning 2 of those is incredible, right? You can call that team a golden generation. We can't get there yet. We can't say that yet. So yes, you buy into it, but for me, it's impossible to start describing these guys as some sort of golden generation until we see improvement.
Until they actually perform, they don't have the right to say it. But here, there's also this other side where I was watching our back line, and I'm going back to this like setting ourselves up for failure kind of idea. Our back line of Anthony Robinson should be a starter in the World Cup. Tim Ream, Chris Richards, Joe Scally. We're in real trouble if any of those 3 are starters in the World Cup. And now, why we have put ourselves in this mindset that we have to win a Copa America, or we have to get out of a group and get into a knockout, which in reality, we're never going to win Copa America. We're not going to beat Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, and Colombia to get through and hoist that cup. And I don't care if it's on U.S. soil or not. It doesn't matter. We're not that good. We're not able to do that. So why would we not have the potential 19-year-olds or 20-year-olds or whoever is next in line getting in line to get these meaningful minutes and meaningful games in a competition to be prepared for 2026 World Cup? So I sat there and I thought to myself,
okay, our players aren't that old.
We're missing. I'm talking about Tim Ream. Why? Yeah. Listen, I love the experience, and I actually think Tim's a very good player, but he's got no business being on the field at this point because he's not going to be a World Cup player in 2026. Can't be. And if he is, we are in trouble. Chris Richards, not good enough right now. So bring in a younger player that's going to be maybe developed by seeing the Darwin Nunez and having to run with him and maybe get scored on twice, but it's going to be a monumental moment for him in his development so that maybe we do have a 20-year-old stud that's a center back that can play at 22 in the World Cup. And I don't know what the depth of our player pool is to look like that, but I know that what I saw last night is not going to get it done in the World Cup. So why are we giving them a run right now to get one step further in a stated objective goal that's not really an important goal?
Because you set the bar and said you have to get it out
in the wrong way. Right. You misobjectified your goals.
Well, it's this constant battle between development or winning, right? Like, how do you weigh the scales, right? Because I kind of agree with you on one hand, Dan, where, look, I think Tim, let's be honest, Tim has been our best defender in the past. Other than Anthony Robinson, Tim's been our best defender.
But that's a one-off. It's a one-off. You can always have an older, you can always throw in an older veteran that's going to keep it together to win some games in a meaningful tournament. I have no problem with that.
Sure.
No problem with that.
Tim played every minute of this Copa America. Is there no one, to Gargs' point, that we can call in to say, oh man, can we give Tim a game off to see what this kid has?
Against Panama and Bolivia,
exactly.
That's what I'm saying. These are meaningful games in a tournament.
A coach's job. This is
arguably lesser competition.
A coach's job is supposed to balance winning games while also developing players, right? And the Federation's done a relatively good job of, and I think they actually got lucky in a sense when we didn't qualify for 2018. It was almost forced upon them that, hey, Dave Sarakin, here you go, buddy. You're going to play literally all of our 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds that have potential. And that helped for sure. That helped a bunch of them become better players and go to bigger clubs in Europe. But right now, we're at this stage, and this takes me into my next point. We're at this stage right now where these guys, this core group of players together, they have been together for a number of years now. And they probably have played the most amount of games together as a core group of players at such a young age than any generation in the national team's history. And they've been with Greg now for 6 years. And honestly, I cannot believe that I'm going to agree with Carly Lloyd, but what she said last night on the post-game show is what I see, and it's complacency. I think that these guys are so comfortable. It's one thing to back a coach and to like a coach. Like, you guys have all had coaches you've backed and you've liked and you've gone to bat for them, and it's easy. It's one thing to back a coach. It's another thing to back a coach and have no fear of being dropped. No fear of being dropped for poor performance, for not playing with your club team. We have 7 or 8 players who consider themselves, I think, written in ink starters, and they are every time we get together with the national team, regardless of their club situation.
Yep.
That to me is not good enough. And
it also goes against what Greg and what U.S. Soccer has been saying for the eternity of time.
Forever.
And that
you
is
have
on the
to be in form for your club to get called in and be in a position to play.
But that's on coaching. And you know what?
Agreed.
If it's too friendly and if it's too cushy, that's not good enough. And
unless it's Gio Reyna.
Unless it's Gio Reyna.
Unless it's Gio Reyna. Okay.
Unless it is Gio.
To me, I'd like to know if you got these guys behind closed doors and you had an honest conversation with them over a beer, and you were like, "What? Like, yeah, you guys like Greg, but like, is there any fear there? Like, do you guys really like respect his voice? If he were to say, Weston, you didn't have a great game last game. You're on the bench. I'm putting Eunice in, or I'm putting Luca De La Torre in, whatever." I think Weston, instead of being like, okay, you know, and I'm obviously just using his name, right? I'm just saying, could be anybody, any of these guys that's written in Penn starter. I think they're saying, fuck that. No, like, I need to play. I need to be on the field. That's, to me, how they feel. There's a level of arrogance from a bunch of guys that think they need to be on the field every minute of every game. And they don't feel that real competition of guys coming up behind them. And now, is that because Greg is too scared to play other guys? Maybe the other guys, he doesn't feel they're ready. I don't know, but all I know is that I think that there's a level of complacency that has set in after 6 years of knowing a coach for so long and his tendencies and how he goes about things, and honestly not really having any fear of repercussion for not playing well.
Yeah, I think there's that.
You cannot have that.
Your point's valid, Dax, and I think that there's also, when we think of World Cup cycles, right, and these teams, I've always thought about, there's usually like 3 layers of ages that are kind of part of this. There's the vets, there's kind of this core group, and then there's these younger players that come in, right? Right now, it looks very heavy with one layer of player, to your point.
I agree.
It doesn't look like there's young players pushing them. It also doesn't look like there's a heavy set of experienced vets that are getting minutes, that are setting a tone and setting an expectation. Gordo, I want to ask you a question. U.S. Soccer, their statement was, we fell short of our expectations and will be conducting a comprehensive review of our performance in Copa America and how best to improve the team and results as we look towards the 2026 World Cup. What are you expecting from that?
If listeners can see this, I am moving my hand up and down with a little circle. I am so sick of this circle jerk comprehensive review. I'm sorry for all the kids out there that are not listening to this podcast, but it is unbelievable. Take your comprehensive review and shove it up your ass, U.S. Soccer. I'm sick of it. What does that even mean? Stop it. Give us an answer, dude. Give us an answer. And it's like, and they're all using it. It's like, even Greg was using it several times for every question during his post-game conference. It's like his yeah, we're going to be doing a review. Wait, what? Who's doing a review of what? Okay, they're reviewing you, you're reviewing them, and it's all just going to go in a circle? No, dude. No. It's either good enough or it's not. Stop it. That's the dumbest statement I've ever heard in my entire.
Okay.
What they should say is like, we're gonna sit down and have a serious, like, we're gonna, you know.
You know what I want a comprehensive review of? You know what I want a comprehensive review of? I want a comprehensive review of every time that the U.S. hasn't played well or has lost a game. I want a comprehensive review of how many times Greg has put his hand up and said, you know what, guys? I got it wrong tonight. I got it wrong tonight. The tactics weren't right. The personnel wasn't right. I can't remember. I'm racking my brain. I try to consume as much media as possible and see what people are saying after games. I can't remember one time Greg has come out and said it wasn't good enough for me. A lot of times there's excuses for why the game went a certain way. This, that, the other. But let me give you an example. The Panama game. Everybody and their mother knows that the Tim Weah red card was majority of the reason why the U.S. lost that game. Greg, you don't have to sit there in the press conference post-game and say that's the reason you lost the game. Even if people know that, even if that's what you believe, you protect your player. Like, I don't see him doing that enough. I don't see him taking enough responsibility after bad performances or bad games and saying, listen, you know what? I got it wrong. We didn't have to move to a back five in that game because Panama wasn't super dangerous and we could have kept more attacking players on the field. You don't have to go and say, yeah, it was a bad decision by Tim and that cost us the game. You don't have to say that. You just don't. Because you can say that in the locker room internally if that's really what you believe. And yeah, is that part of the reason why you lost the game? Absolutely. But protect your players, man. Like, I just haven't seen it enough from him, honestly.
I don't know.
These guys,
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know.
I haven't seen enough.
Like
I haven't seen enough.
The players have Greg's back, and so I don't know if he's not protective of them. But let's get back to the statement, Gordo. Give me a timeline. When do you think that they're going to deliver a comprehensive review, whatever that means?
Yeah, I'll be watching for it. I mean, and that's a really good question, Dan. I mean, what do they even give a timeline? It's like they say these things and then it just goes away. You know, just like it goes away. We're going to do a comprehensive review of all the candidates for the job. And then it just went away and then we rehired Greg. You know, it wasn't like they broke it down. Where was the review? Who gets to see the review? What was the review of the other candidates? You know, it just goes away. So we should really remember this in a month and see if any comprehensive review has come out, because there won't be. There won't be. But a week's time, 2 weeks' time tops. Well, no, that's not true. They have to legitimately see if they can get somebody else in. If they have any candidates that they think they can actually get. And I think I would be, if I was this guy, this comprehensive review guy, if I was him, I would be sending all my cronies. I would be sending 12 people out on jets today to go have interviews with the best qualified candidates that are open at this possible time. I would send them and not have a return ticket. Go get that person. Get me an interview today. Get them back here in my office. I want to have as many conversations as I can. That should be the comprehensive review. Can they get somebody?
Dax, you're the president of U.S. Soccer. You're Cindy Parlow-Cohn, or you're Matt Crocker, the sporting director, or you're JT, the CEO. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe you're all three of them, and maybe it is all three of them that ultimately make this call. What's step number one in your comprehensive review right this second? If today, this started this morning, what's step number one?
Who else is available?
Okay.
Who else is available to coach this national team? Because to Gordo's point, you can't just pull the trigger on Greg if you don't think or know that you have someone better lined up. And I know that there's a lot of hand-wringing over getting knocked out. I know, look, we've been critical of Greg for this tournament, and I think rightfully so. That doesn't mean that I don't think he's still a good coach, because I do. But if you have seen the results for these last 2 years that he has been involved, you cannot come out of it looking at it any other way than this team has stagnated. You can't. It's impossible to look at it in any other way. And if your review doesn't find that, then the people hiring are in the wrong job. It's not for them, honestly.
Is there anything more important in U.S. soccer's history than this decision right now?
Not right now. No. This is the most important 2-year build-up to a World Cup that we have ever had. That's not hyperbole. That is a fact. You're hosting the biggest tournament in the world of any sport, and you're going to have more eyeballs on it than ever. You're going to have more big media coverage than ever, and we theoretically should have the best players that we have ever had. So if your review comes back and says, listen, we kicked the tires on 10 different international caliber coaches. We kicked the tires on Klopp, on Pep, on Jose, on whoever, the best of the best. And every single one of them was unavailable or wanted too much money or we couldn't afford it or they just didn't want the job. And you come back and say, Greg's our guy, then you better back him. You better back him through till the end because that is your guy. And for better or worse, you're going to live and die by that decision. But if there's someone else out there available who's interested in the job, then I think you have to move on because at this point in time, the national team has stagnated and everyone can see that. Everyone can see that.
Yep. Gordo, you're Arthur Blank and I am Matt Crocker and I'm the sporting director for the U.S. men's national team. And I'm coming to you and I'm telling you, hey, we haven't done a great job. We didn't hit our marks here and we're letting the U.S. down right now. I don't want to have Canada, be more impressive with what they've done. They've got 3 MLS owners that went out and got Jesse Marsh and are set up a private trust fund so that we could have our head coach. I want a blank check. And I want you to support this. Arthur Blank's also given $100 million to build their new facility in Atlanta as well. Are you giving me a blank check to go and hire whoever I want?
100%. Arthur Blank has not turned down an opportunity to give money to build this sport in this country, especially in his state of Georgia. He's just not. I would also hit up Phil Anschutz. Hit them all up. Say, this is the biggest thing we're ever going to do. Phil Anschutz built soccer in this country. I'm not sure if Robert Kraft would do it, but, or the Dallas guys, the Crafts, but, those first two. The Hunts. Yeah.
I don't think they'd spend.
No.
I don't think that's
don't stop in Frisco. But yes, dude, you would have to think that would be a wise business decision to be his first phone call. Hey,
that's my step number one. My step number one is there has to be a change, and you're not going to be able to get the talent at the head coaching level, at the staff level that we are currently spending with. And this is from my pitch to these owners this is the most important protection of your investment of the past 30 years that you're going to make. You guys have spent on Leo Messi. You've spent on continual investments into Major League Soccer, but this is the most significant set of eyeballs that will be on the round ball in our game, in our sport, in our country, in the history of the game.
Yep.
This is massive.
A massive World Cup from the U.S. men's national team on home soil. It helps everyone. It helps everyone involved in the game, all the tentacles of the octopus touching every part of U.S. soccer. It helps everyone. It raises the boat. It just does. You have to do it. You have to go big, right?
Dax, it's black or white. It's yes or no. You firing Greg tomorrow?
Yeah, you have to.
Gordo?
Well, we just said it. You have to have another candidate. But yes, if they do have another candidate, yes, you have to move on.
There's a lot of candidates out there.
Well, you got to have a better candidate, dude. We're not going to just hire, me. Although I think I would do a brilliant job.
Based on your performance in the group stages at TST, I don't know if I would.
I don't know. We still haven't gotten your motivational speech.
We made it out. We made it out with one win.
You did not get grouped.
I hate it's a love-hate with that term. It's like love it and I hate it.
It'll grow on you.
Who invented it? Who started that? Did social media just started? It came out of nowhere.
I don't know. The kids call lies caps now. So who knows?
Yeah. And Gordo, one thing is for sure.
Who knows?
Gordo, one thing's for sure. You're mid, 100%.
Yeah.
You're mid, exactly.
Absolutely.
No
Gargs, what about you? What's your answer?
I think we solved it. So all day today, I actually thought it was a coin flip. I've been thinking that it's a coin flip of whether or not they do move on. But I still go back to what I saw last night, which was, in my estimation, arguably our best performance against a top tier team. And I still didn't see development that was going to get us any further in a World Cup in 2026. And that for me is why I think we need to take another step.
Okay, so that's two different questions, by the way. You asked us if we would move on, and I said, yes, I would. Now, are you asking me if I think U.S. soccer will? That's a different answer, because I honestly don't know.
So that's me. That's if I was in the position, I would move on.
Okay.
I'm answering. I know? I don't know.
Will U.S. soccer move on? Honestly, I agree with you. I think it's 50-50. I don't think they care. I don't think they care that the pitchforks are out. Maybe a little bit, but
having been around
this whole process to rehire him, it's going to have to be.
Yeah, but like think about the process of rehiring him, and think about the pressure that was on those guys with the Real Housewives of Atlanta nonsense that was going on, Real Housewives of New Jersey that was happening. They were damned if they did and damned if they didn't. They were not in a good place. Whether you brought Greg back, it wasn't going to look good. And whether you got rid of him because of the nonsense that Claudio and the Reynas were putting out there, or whatever happened with that wouldn't have looked good either. And I feel like it kind of forced their hand into status quo. We'll move forward and we'll support a guy that's done an okay job in shepherding a very talented class. Now they haven't delivered the results. And so now for me, you have to take a step.
Yeah. It'll be a really interesting month. We'll see what comes of it.
Well, I think we need a poll. Statman Jack, get a poll up. Major League Journeymen out there. We want to hear what you think. And do it ideally before they come back with the comprehensive review, so you don't get the answers for the test. All right. We want to hear your answers.
You have plenty of time.
We got plenty of time.
It's going to be real comprehensive.
Oh, Gordo, Dax, it's been real. Adios.